impressed with his background and his knowledge and where he seems to be going with his initiatives.
Okay. Do you guys mind if I
So,
record this so I could share this with the rest of the team?
sure.
Okay. Well, yeah. Tell me more about it. So Michael's got renewable energy initiatives going on. He's pretty well connected, it appears. What would you see perhaps as a point of collaboration?
Well, Michael's focus is not specifically energy, although
Yeah.
I mean, it's community level resilience and regeneration. And what I have found interesting, particularly, I mean, I've been back and forth and working with Michael now for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we've made several runs at some large proposals. This is one that I think we're in pretty good shape for, but he has been working under the umbrella of public health and his public, which is his doctorate background. Man, that dude is in every single major catastrophe, hurricanes, famines, floods, so, tropical storms. He's in them, dealing with emergency situations around public health, and out of that has started to focus on, let's notice some of these communities that come back, bounce back more resilient than others, and what's going on there, and starting to develop what a network of the end goal is to have 400 identified communities that have a whole series of basically self-defined standards that have started to define what it is to move towards resilience and survival in the 21st century with whatever's coming at us.
Yep.
And we're starting off with our list. Can we identify in different regions around the world 400 pilot groups that are significantly moving in that direction? And what do they need to do that? And therein comes in both the tech and the hardware of and the case to be made for open source in both categories of tech and hardware.
Does it have to do anything with Fab City initiative? Because are you familiar with Fab City?
I actually have heard of Fab City, but just heard of it. I'm not sure what that
Yeah, if we
does.
talk about, I mean, so Fab City is about cities that agree to that sustainable production, basically cities that make everything that they need. That might be worthwhile to connecting with those people.
Fab cities.
Fab City,
As a
yeah.
fabrication.
Yep,
I see. I see.
yep.
Yeah, that's
Um, Give me something to write down.
Yeah, I just
okay.
did a Google search for locally productive, globally connected cities. Mm-hmm. Which is interesting because all of these different pieces are coming together in fascinating ways. I may have mentioned I'm also working with Silicon Harlem here uptown, and hadn't even thought about how this connects into something like that before. So we started with the Global Summit, putting people together, um, and I know also Michael was talking specifically about laser printing, um, silica, what do you call it? LEDs,
3D is not design.
3D design for solar panels, laser printing solar panels, and how you'd be very interested in an approach to that.
Mm-hmm. Is Michael familiar with open source, or is that new to him? Or
Yeah, he is. Yeah, yeah, and he's very very much looking for open source hardware as being the way to really make a lot more, a lot of the needs for resilience and regeneration to be more accessible globally.
If he wants to collaborate on open silicon, i.e., making PV at the community level, we're probably going to get into that in a couple of years. There's good work happening from Michigan Tech University from Dr. Joshua Pierce, who's working on open source photovoltaic related work, related to supporting technology around it. But it's basically the model where we open source the tech and the whole production flow, and open source the machines to make that happen. So that, I mean, I believe that PV that should be something that is very well distributed in terms of production. Like right now, the production is quite centralized, of course, in mega factories of that. But I think that's a great idea to turn PV into distributed production as well. That's definitely a regenerative idea. I don't know if Michael is thinking about the deep level of going to the whole fabrication of facilities. Has he talked like that too, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then maybe we have some common ground there on open sourcing the supply chain there.
Right. So it's the issues is what.
Sorry about that. So my computer's crashing. Would you guys mind actually if we go to this? Google Hangouts doesn't seem to crash for me. Unfortunately, I've got some issues with the Zoom, but can I give you a link for Google Hangout and we can just migrate over there by just clicking on that new link?
Sure.
Yeah, Zoom takes us through China, so who knows what's happening.
Okay, so actually let me give you this one link that should work just as well as this does. So I'm already there, so if you guys paste on...
Did you put it in chat?
Yep, just did. No,
oh, okay,
sorry, wrong one.
Uh-oh.
My Control-C is not working. There, the last meet.jit.c/open source ecology. Does that come out for you guys?
Yep, I see that. So, okay, I'm going to click into that now and
just click and you should be taken right over to the. I'm already there. Another one. Does it work for you if you just click on it?
It doesn't seem to.
Really? So, so Ted is already on.
Okay, I believe I'm here now.
Yes, you are.
I'm a laggard here.
But
Sorry.
Tim, can you just click on that link?
Maybe
Do you see the chat?
And it wants me to add Jitsi meetings. Can you hear me, Marcin?
Yes, I can.
Okay. What is Jitsi meetings?
That's just another open source meeting platform like Google Hangout or Skype or.
Is this just meetings?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I guess I need to add that as an extension to Chrome.
Although I came in before I added it. It worked for me right away.
No, you shouldn't need to add an extension. It should just work. Just click on it.
Well, Mercury's retrograde.
It sounds like you might be here. You're starting to echo.
Yeah, I hear that too. So where the heck?
No, you should be good.
Okay,
You're
there
good.
I am. Okay, so let me get out of.
Yeah. Okay. This should work better. Shouldn't crash.
Okay, I'm going to
This
end
shouldn't
Zoom
crash
now.
here, so we're good. Okay. Okay. So sounds like Michael, maybe the conversation could be viable on actual production of open source equipment. For us, that applies to PV and also to wind. With wind, it's about open source generators and actually 3D printed wind towers and stuff like that with metal printing. So crazy stuff. It's all doable. Um,
Who's the professor at Michigan?
oh yes, so it's Dr. Joshua Pierce, and let me send you a link to that. Maybe like open source photovoltaics. Joshua Pierce. Oh, here's. Let me just send you a Wikipedia article for the. For the man. Yeah, that's Michigan Open Source Technology Lab. That's really good stuff. Michigan Tech Open Sustainability Technology Group.
Okay, I'm getting a huge amount of echo. Okay, I just need to get out of all these other systems, I guess. All right, I think I'm good. So you just sent me something. How did you send that?
Once again, it's in the chat box of the. So now, if you click on the bottom right, bottom left, there's a chat button there. So there's actually real equipment being developed there, like some of the systems for how you make like the nano coatings and actual science, like clean room style science that's behind that. That's part of the system. It's like it's like vacuum processing, depositing layers. But yeah, I mean, the general idea is, just to summarize, is sand is abundant. Sand is electrolyzed into silicon, and silicon is doped using the certain process where you can make up to solar grade silicon, and that's where semiconductor grade silicon also comes from when it's more pure. But it's an abundant resource, and that lends itself to distributed production with trace amounts. I mean, there is some chemistry in there, like nasty chemicals. Those are very limited, and they can be made cyclic.
Okay, I have yet to figure out how to open up chat here.
Okay, bottom left is 3
right,
icon.
I see it. Like I click open, and
you
it
click
doesn't.
on the chat box icon.
Yep.
Yeah, and there should be a link in there. Or if you want to look at my screen, I can share my screen.
I have the enter a nickname to use chat. I've entered the nickname 3 times,
yeah, maybe you're some technical issues, but you can also view my screen.
There we are. Got it now. For some reason, it just went through. Okay.
Yep. Tell me a little more about Michael's interests and what you think might be possible for collaboration.
Well, he has a group of people, as I say, who have been. The folks he brings with him are hardened criminals. They are really used
of
to
the regenerative world.
Yes, they're really used to making something out of nothing. In dire straits situations, both domestically and internationally. They've done a lot of work with storm-overwhelmed communities in Florida and throughout the Caribbean and a range of other areas in South and Central America. And so he begins from that base and then starts to grow something more positive from what's been completely devastated.
As so you talk about, would he be interested in like along the lines of Fab City initiative, open source microfactories, and the idea of developing a generic open source microfactory?
I think he would be. I think that might be one of the outcomes of, in fact. I mean, the beginning of the immediate point of focus is this open grant shared by Rockefeller Foundation and data.org. And they are opening up to grants for between 10,000 and 10 million. Give us some proposals that demonstrate you would know how to use that kind of money, basically. And there's a lot of weight behind the group that are now together. It's a shame that first meeting was not one you were able to come in on, but there'll be many others. Specifically, we were speaking of open source infrastructure as being critical, and the fact that there will probably be a utility for regional fabrication spots would be a natural outgrowth of that.
The data.org things talks about data science. Could that be done within this kind of context?
There are three areas of focus. One is what would empower data that was meant to empower the individual and the individual worker. One that's would empower entrepreneurs to create, and ones that would empower communities to come together. And they want to see you able to hit on all three bases.
Would the definition of data include something like a repository of global design blueprints for building a new civilization?
It might strike their fancy, who knows? I would think so. I would think that would be of interest. Think that would be of interest. Uh-oh. What did I just do here? Okay, here we are. I think that there's a number of. I think this would be a very interesting potential home for you to do some good work, Marcin.
That'll be good. So let me just interrupt you there, Tim. So last time you were in the middle of some probing questions to understand how we operate. Did I answer your questions?
Not really.
Tell me more questions.
Actually, I was fascinated when you said, "Can I record this for the team?" Now, when we last spoke, and I said, "How what level of organization do you have?" And what I heard you say is nothing. I don't have. I mean, I got volunteers. They come, they go. Some are able to sustain themselves. Some need grants. They come, they go. But basically, it's a very, very loose affiliation, which is, pulling people together for projects and so on. And most of that, to my ears, most of what you've done in that regard in terms of project work has been stuff where people essentially paid to learn and be part of the experience and take what they could get from it. And very rapid prototyping, very rapid, not just prototyping, but production elements that was really fascinating. And then the outcome of that 10 years of development was, what I heard was that you're still pretty much a solo operation. Did I miss something?
No, we don't have an organization. We have a development team. We've got partnerships and volunteers, collaborating advisors, board of directors. We are in 501c3, so we've got that bit happening. But when I say we don't have an organization, I mean a permanent staff and a building and stuff like that. We don't have that. We have a facility. This is where I operate from. This is for research and development, 30 acres land-based facility where we have our microfactory situation and some agriculture experiments, and we do a lot of prototyping here. Yep.
And you have a board of directors, though?
Yeah.
How many are on your board?
4.
Excellent. You kept it.
Yeah, we've got basic structure. But I was saying, I hope you get the point. Is yeah, we do a lot of different activity, but as far as having an established organization that can survive, like right now, if I were to disappear, maybe I don't know how much of this work would be taken on because I haven't trained people to really take it on, or maybe like one or two people are getting livelihood out of this work. One that I can definitely, one or two maybe that are getting livelihood doing this for now.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
the idea is that goes into the idea of enterprise training. That's what we want to do. We want to create different branches of this, so we have land-based facilities all over the world that contribute to the collaboration. And we're trying to crack the nut of how you do that in a very efficient lean method.
Understood.
But at the same time, to carry something further, I mean, you need significant power to go forward, to have structure and to plan. And beyond myself, like, I haven't built a team around this work yet. So that's part of the developments that need to happen. I mean,
Okay.
basically, just if I can explain that, like how come after a decade I don't really have a team yet? Well, a lot of that, first of all, was a lot of prototyping. So we've done a lot of proofs of concept. Now, the other part is that I thought, like, for example, when we first did the brick press in 2008, I thought, oh yeah, now the world's going to take it up and it's going to explode with this open source brick press. People are going to create enterprise everywhere. None of that happens, right?
Mhm.
There's a big difference between a project and a fully viable product that can be effective in the marketplace. So we're finding out that the part to develop the enterprise, that's much harder than actually to develop the product. I mean, that's like the whole next level.
Quite so. Quite so. Yeah. 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 Um, well, that begs a question actually. From do you want to, is one could say you don't have an organization around you and an enterprise system around you because you don't want one. Um,
No, there's two. Should I cut in or
well,
go ahead? I can speak to that, but
uh, well, let me stop then. Please speak to it. Yeah.
well, no, I do want a formidable organization. I don't want to fall into any traps of current organizations. You get strings attached, and you no longer have the freedom to do what's truly meaningful. So I'm being very careful about how you structure in the most decentralized way that you don't end up getting plugged back right into the system and losing sight of the vision. So that's the constraint. Yeah.
Oh, I understand the fear. I mean that is what has to be faced in entering into an enterprise is the personal challenge of, can I do what it takes to create an organization, an
No, that's not the
enterprise?
question. The question is how to, that's not the question for me. The question is how do I, because I can see a little, I've seen a lot of this. Like, for example, we actually had 4
Of
staff.
course.
Yeah,
I,
we had staff before, like in 2014.
uh,
Didn't really work out well. I saw some of the limits of why that was. That was based on foundation funding, but the funding ran out, and
right.
we ran out of luck. So
Right.
things like that. So basically, what we're trying to do is do bootstrap funding mechanisms that can assure that we're autonomous on our funding, so that we can do what's really needed. And that's also mission compliant, because our mission is to train entrepreneurs. If we're going to train entrepreneurs, that's got to have to create some value, right? And therefore, that should be able to feed us.
Well, I think that might be the sweet spot for this particular grant wave. I mean, every proposal, every philanthropic offering has its pluses and minuses. Um, you always have to watch. You always have to watch where the money's coming from and what goes with it. What level?
If I may, I mean, back to 1602 with the invention of the public company. I mean, I look at it from that perspective, in that that's one of the structural evils that exist on a society. So if we get into business how do we make sure that we are aware of things like that, like the corporation or the charter of a corporation and things like that? We are a nonprofit corporation, but if I'm aware of some of the details of how the financial systems work, with
There's no
fiat
difference.
currency
There's
or
absolutely no.
corporate
Let me just
structure.
make sure you're aware.
Yeah.
There is no difference between a for-profit and not-for-profit organization. Zero difference, except for one thing. One is profit-taking. One plows its profits back into its program.
Yep.
They both have to be profit-making.
Sure.
They both have to have enough structure to hold itself together from project to project, or there's no, or you're reinventing every wheel every time all over
Opposed
again.
to for-profit or non-profit, it's just about the governance that matters, right?
It's about the leadership, the governance, and the willingness to be a really good gardener,
Right.
a really strong cultivator of, because what holds it together at the end of the day is the mission and the culture,
Yeah.
not the money. The money comes and goes. The mission and the culture is what creates enough juju to keep going.
Yep.
There's a whole dynamic of this that plays itself out. A related but separate conversation is helping to build organizations is something that I did for over 20 years, and I've started four entities, 2 not-for-profit, 2 for-profit.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Yep.
The question is what gives this thing legs both with and beyond you,
Right.
so that you and also a good part of that question, frankly, is as you imagine an organization, imagine the team that you would want, what role do you want to have in it? It's often a case. It's often the case. I can speak as one of a founder who says, I have my most fun doing this, not that, and
yeah, sure.
everyone's saying, well, you're the founder, you have to do this, and it's like, no, I don't. I could choose to have other people do
Of
things
course.
I don't want to do. Even if I could do them, I don't want to do them. I don't want to do them since I don't want to do them. I'm not good at them. So let's
Right.
just be real about that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
I can tell you pretty much what those things are. Yeah.
but that might be a discussion to have sometime. The issue right now for me is if you're to be brought into a rolling group like AGR, which is the Alliance for Global Resilience and Regeneration, as a resource person tied into this this particular grant, since that's what's in front of people. How do you imagine that would work for you?
Well, we still have to be clear about some of the goals, like getting the 50 machines. It's not about the 50 machines. It's about developing a way to develop collaboratively. That's our goal by 2028, to master that process up to extreme enterprise, meaning that we can host not only the kind of events for rapid manufacturing, but also for rapid enterprise creation. So the collaborative techniques, a platform for how do you do truly good, economically significant collaborative development. And as a byproduct of that, we're getting the Global Village construction set completed by 2028. So that means all the enabling technologies that you can literally bootstrap a civilization from dirt and twigs, scrap metal, and
Yeah, we
land.
probably need that at least. I mean, you would have that at the end. You would have everything you think you need by the end of the line at 2028, and it would be iteratively being developed, project by project, group by group, community by community. By the time you were at 2028, you'd have something fully formed.
I'm looking at it a little differently. I'm looking at it as there's individual enterprises that can be created one by one,
Yeah.
but for the meaningful replicability, that means like with about 100K of capital, you can create a microfactory and get land and do everything. Something that would cost probably around 10 million, we could probably do for about $100,000. I want to get to that level by 2028 so that we can rapidly deploy this all over the world.
Yeah, it's just that's needed probably by 2024.
Great.
I would-
Then we've
I
got
would- I would suggest to
accelerated
you.
program.
Yeah, I mean, 2028 is like, you're going to have people starving in the streets. They're not going to be.
Yeah.
They're not going to have the energy to be developing manufacturing entities. I don't think. Okay.
Yeah, realistically speaking, if you want to get the download of numbers, it'd probably take about $50 million to do that, based on the fact that it takes about $1 million per any significant deployed technology, and there's 50 of them. I think we can probably do it for about 8 or 10 million altogether by the deadline, and but that's the kind of numbers we're talking about. As far as acceleration, the magic bullet, like I still think there's somewhat of a magic bullet if we can crack the idea of how you develop the enterprise in a really effective way, which we're working on. Yeah, then that could really accelerate things. Right now, I mentioned to you maybe like that collaborative literacy, or the idea of how people can truly collaborate effectively. That's the part that's missing in culture. So that's just one is the cultural mindset, but second is the technical tools you need to engage in that kind of a mass collaborative process. The tools exist, the mindsets don't really exist yet, in my view.
I'm from a world where there's hundreds and hundreds of people who are developing all kinds of collaborative techniques and technologies.
Yep.
Some more better than others, but there's a lot of good work being done.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
So when you say that, what network resources, experiences are you tapping into from your 10 years of existence thus far?
Yeah.
I mean, you clearly, when you go mentioning this university, that group, and Joshua Pierce and so on and so forth, are these people you're actively working with, and you just know that they're in the world as a fellow traveler?
With them. Basically, the protocol is if somebody's got open technology, we build upon it. We take it and run with it. So, for example, like with the open source RepRap project, the 3D printer project, we snap that up and build upon it to develop the printers that we use that are more suitable for the kind of properties that we do, which is industrial grade production. Right now, a lot of them are hobby based. There's not really a truly industrial grade printer out there, so we build upon it, and there we go. Here's that. So anything we could get our hands upon. The key there being is the actual, like if we're gonna build it, you have to have some technical design. So that's where the open source technology comes in. We build upon all of that. And I say when I say I think collaboration is limited, is that I can point on maybe a couple of one or two or three hands the economically viable open hardware projects that are out there. There's a few of them. There's a few really good ones, but they're very, very, very rare. Like if you talk about the percentage of the economy, they're a blip. They're like 1/10,000th of the current
I'm sure.
economy. It's like non-existent, right?
I mean, let me say, when part of my enthusiasm for coming upon you and what you've done is I've been involved in development and developing community economics and blah 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 for 30 depending on who's counting, the last 15 years intensively in seafood, and prior to that the previous 30 years.
Yep.
and I ain't never heard of you. So like, uh, that's exciting to come upon you in this whole
Well, I think
category.
that kind of shows the what I'm talking about. The real deal is there's very little true collaboration across borders. That's the thing. That's the thing we got to solve as a society. You know. And part of the artifact of why you might have not heard about us is part of that greater issue, in my view. You know.
It's also I think open source is now finally coming of age. I've brought Tim into open source from the tech side and the supply chain,
Yeah.
and he's been getting up to speed on what that means within the seafood industry.
Yeah.
And part of it, we've come across, background material that says 2018 was the year of open source, where, on the software side, companies have started offering large IPOs and financing on open source. So open source is now finally, within the last 2 years, recognized as the killer software development platform. And I think that shift in the in the relationship to open source offers tremendous opportunity now on the hardware side.
Right, and that's you said it exactly. And it's that unfortunately, there's that big gap of the cost of prototyping hardware because the recognition since perhaps a week. That's actually a new recognition for me. Like initially, I used to think, oh yeah, you do a prototype, you do a couple of prototypes, 3 prototypes, you got a product. Well, no, the more accurate number is somewhere between a dozen and hundreds, and you can understand that by looking at how software works. Because in software, that number is literally like millions of prototypes. You add one line and another. In hardware, that's what makes it so super hard. And I would say that 2013 or 14 or so was about the dark ages of open source hardware. Like when we've seen the events like the enclosure of MakerBot, the formerly open source 3D printer company, and other things, which to Silicon Valley and Wall Street, it said, oh yeah, open hardware doesn't work. Once you have a business, you actually got to close it up. So we're merely, I think, at this time, kind of pulling out of that phase. And I think we're near the transition where open hardware can actually start taking place in a major way because there's enough of the small elements that are coming in place. There's 3D printing, there's CNC tool chains, there's Arduino, there's like from COVID came out a bunch of open hardware related to mechanical devices. It's kind of slowly building. And the thing about hardware is that it's relentless. Like just because someone didn't have enough energy to finish it, someone can pick it up a decade from now. That's why I'm trying to document everything on a wiki like I do, because I know it's going to be critical for somebody who has no idea about this to take off exactly where I left it off. Relentless.
That's exciting, and it's creatively exciting.
That's why I can't sleep at night.
Right. Well, that's my I will. I mean, if we're gonna have a good relationship, I have to be completely honest. I mean, I got off the phone with you from our first exchange, and just thought, 10 years. Let's see, a tractor. You had a prototype of a tractor. 8 years ago? You had this. You had that. It's like, with that strength of vision, that's not enough production to make a diddly squat. So let's figure out what would move this thing into another whole level.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen other than through collaboration. You can't accelerate without collaboration.
Right.
Acceleration and collaboration are required. And So it could be that this emerging agar group that has been emerging now it might be a good accelerator. It be, I think at a heart level and at an intention level, it's quite aligned. You're working with individuals. You're looking at training regional and bioregional entrepreneurs. You're talking about bioregionally appropriate designs. It is literally appropriate technology in its classic sense. And the fact that it can be open source so that a group in one community can go, oh, that worked there. We can actually use that here, adjust it a little bit for our terrain, and we're off and running.
Yeah. Can you send a link to the Agar group?
There is no website at this time. They do have. What I'll do is I'll connect you to Michael.
Yeah.
Mike McDonald, and make sure that you do get included in this next series of meetings. There was another meeting today that I wasn't aware of until it was a half hour before of it, so I just jumped in and realized halfway into it, I should have.
Yeah, can you connect me to the Hatponics person?
Yeah, Ryan Cox at hatponics.com. That's a really definite connection. He is doing fabrication. He's doing fabrication of greenhouses, and most of the equipment and stuff that he works with kids and adapts to everything from classrooms to football fields. He does his own work. So,
yep.
I think you'll find a kindred spirit there. And he also has chosen to work hard and just get shit done, staying on the periphery. He's been operating out of Chattanooga, Tennessee for the first dozen, probably decade. He's now moved uptown to Knoxville, Tennessee, but he stays out of the fray of fame, fortune, and nonsense and media nonsense, and just stays focused on getting shit done.
Yeah, I would identify with that. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. And I think, Morrison, on the bioregional development side, I've been working with Tim for about 6 months now, on the seafood initiatives. And that really centers on, our understanding that as the oceans are now dying, essentially, large-scale bioregional development in the oceans is a massive approach that needs to happen. The oceans can literally yields can be turned around in a period of 10 years. Massive progress can happen. 1 billion people can be fed a protein meal every day through this. Seafood is the most efficient form of protein on the planet. And part of where Tim and I connected is that Tim already has bioregional development plans and has been focused very heavily on that. So, and this is a whole complementary area that really, I understand how important it is on land.
Yep.
But when you bring it into the oceans, it's like, whoa, this is where it really needs to happen big time and quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tim, what do you see as the role of aquaponics, such as tilapia and other fish, on terrestrial ecosystems, from the land? Do you like that idea too, or not really?
Yeah, it'll take everything. There'll be land-based. There'll be near coastal environments that you can work with, and deeper ocean environments you can work in, and you're going to need all of the above.
Yeah.
And if you simply insist upon the design being restorative and regenerative, and not merely moving towards sustainable, you just stay with the design intensity until you crack that, which is not easy to crack. I mean, not hard to crack. All natural systems are based on such simple design: waste equals food, and cradle to cradle basic sensibilities. And you just stop. No, you just don't allow in any concept that moves towards allowing waste to even be considered,
Right.
in the game. And presto changeo, everything starts to shift.
Yep.
So. I'm afraid you guys are both catching me at a time when I'm utterly exhausted. I've just finished. Ted, I completed my latest funding hurdle, and it looks like all things being right with the world, this fund is going to be released to me within between now and the end of the month.
Very cool.
So a lot of conversations we're having now may shift dramatically at the end of with that coming about. It's only been 3.5 years of work focusing on getting this, so that a conversation like this, can go beyond the drawing board. And actually, I won't have a fund enough to fund everything, but I will have the ability to really move it to a point where other groups, and I'm not interested in getting to the VC world. This kind of activity moves from prototype to public-private level funding, so that it moves into a much, much larger frame of regional focus where, whole communities and whole states and regions take it on as being how they want to develop in the future.
Yep. When you succeed on this fund, is that under the Ocean work, under your organization with Ocean, or what organization will that be?
That will be my organization, and I consider it aquaculture centric, simply because, as Ted said, I think that you have, with aquaculture, aquaponics, you have the makings of the beginnings of ecosystem. I'm focusing on that because in my exposure, it invites you into ecosystem management. So that's why it's attractive, and it invites you into a waste equals food circular economy by its nature, and again, that starts to get the ball rolling in the right direction. But to be clear, I'm not restricted to ocean stuff only, if that was the nature of your question.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of the groups I'm going to be, it's very clear that in terms of alternative energy infrastructure and work, the missing piece of the puzzle, according to several of the major longtime solar economists and solar developers that I know, the missing puzzle of why we haven't had this massive proliferation is strictly the financing, just strictly the financing of the technologies at the small and medium size. The big boys, the utilities feel that they can take it over, but they're not even close, because they don't even begin to get the fact that none of these technologies are supposed to be connected to central grids, because they haven't thought of it that way, because they don't want to think of it that way, so they don't. But everybody else who wants to use it does, and they're lacking the financing to move in that direction at a significant rate. Point one. Point two, they are not. They don't feel that they have any knowledge of, access to, or even idea about open source as an option for them. That would be much more accessible. But I was just began down that part of the conversation to simply say, I know one of the groups I'm going to be investing in is a group that's going to be offering financial technology expertise specific to alternative energy. So that's an example of something I will definitely be doing that's not ocean related. Or at least not necessarily ocean related. There'll be plenty of solar and wind energy stuff to do in the ocean as well, along coastal systems.
Yeah.
Though I'm most excited by an inventor guy who he did one of the I think he's one of the first surfers to go into kiteboard work, and then was the first one to develop kiteboard foils, and then trimaran, catamaran, and trimaran foils, and he has a whole technology about creating higher and higher and higher kite energy drawdown systems that I think might blow away most of the much more efficient than windmills, and probably blow away the need for windmills. You just go up higher in the sky where the wind never stops. Anyhow, did we lose you, Ted?
No, I'm here.
Okay, good.
Here. Somehow I'm just my video turned off. But
Okay, good. I'm afraid I really do need to split. I'm fading fast here.
Yep.
And anything else for you, Ted?
I think that covers most of it right now. On Monday, I think at 3:00 or so, I have a call with Manu. I had sent you information about that. If you're
talking about Prakash?
This is no Kawasi. This is ULA, ULULA.com, and this is related to supply chain and its impact on communities.
Yep.
He was involved with us in Occupy, and this is focused on his involvement in the global summit and other areas.
Where do we go from here then?
I think I'm going to be focusing on both for a while, both this Agar contract grant and Global Summit as activities coming up just in the next 60 days. The grant, the Rockefeller Foundation grant comes due proposal like in July, and it'll be awarded I think in like August. So that's moving at a pace, and Global Summit will be operating at a pace. And actually, one of the things I'll be doing upon closing this fund is making myself completely inaccessible for about 2 weeks. I'm closing shop and doing nothing for about 2 weeks, and then I'm going to start to build the organization that is that such a fund and such a level of mission deserves. Then I'll be able to come back and pay attention to the issues that brought Ted and I together around, see if we can move seafood ecosystem apace. And I mean, in all of these areas, everything I'm involved in is around regenerative systems that relate to integrated water, food, energy systems that make for resilience, and that up and down the line provide opportunities for open source technology and open source hardware, as far as I can see. Because otherwise you're how should I say, you're too dependent on the industrial systems that are basically I just don't want to support them. So there'll be something, we'll have to be creating something else, and there'll be transitional hybrid work to be done for sure.
All right.
That's my
Yeah.
sense.
Well, let me know how I can help in that. That's what we do. So, yeah.
All right.
Okay, so we'll be following up, and on the Global Summit, I'm doing a fair amount of work with Melanie and helping her to curate it and working out the narrative and all of the other details. So I'll be able to, fill you in, on the Global Summit in depth as that clarifies, and we're making some good progress on it.
And on that front, Ted, I should say that I tuned in yesterday to a call with her that I thought was going to be like a dozen people, and it turned out to be just her and me and Laquel. And there's a whole bunch of conversation around the structuring of the entire Olympic theme with the Global Summit that we should talk about, or I should fill you in on, or you should see what she's made of that exchange, because I pushed her very hard on several different things that she was planning, and just didn't think it was realistically going to happen that way. And so see where she's at now. When was the last time you spoke with her?
Today we spent
Okay.
2 or 3 hours together today.
Okay. Good.
Continuing to try to move the narrative along and figure out outreach letters and stuff like that. And,
Cool.
and yes, and simplifying. She's pushing too much. Her stuff is too complicated in this time frame, and I just keep repeating simplify, and I've been making some progress with her on that.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Okay, everybody. It's Friday. Yeah. Have
Friday.
a good weekend.
Take
Yeah.
Okay. Bye bye.
Juneteenth. Celebrate Juneteenth. Take care.
Yes. Enjoy.
Okay.
Thanks.
Bye bye.